Hey everyone, this is Christopher Luxon, the former CEO of Air New Zealand.
This is John Lee Dumas, the founder and host of Entrepreneurs on Fire.
This is Tracy Ibarra. I'm in Executive Solutions at Dell Technologies.
This is Travis Chappell, founder of Build Your Network. If you are wanting to learn how to embrace change,
To navigate through disruption as a leader,
then listen to the Leadership is Changing podcast.
The Leadership is Changing podcast.
the Leadership is Changing podcast with my good friend,
my very good friend, Denis Giannoutsos.
Welcome to Leadership is Changing. Each week, we and our guests provide information and insights through exploring leading change. This is taking your leadership to another level by finding the balance between executive excellence and personal well-being through stories that inspire real change. It's time to adapt in our fast-moving world when leadership is changing with your host, Denis Giannoutsos.
Hey, welcome to the show. Leadership is Changing. What we as leaders know to be true is that change is constant. Leaders everywhere confront similar obstacles because people are people, but everywhere you go, leaders are overwhelmed, disrupted, and under pressure. They run from email to email, meeting to meeting. Many leaders are not changing quick enough, which means they run the risk of becoming irrelevant and being left behind. The purpose of the show is taking our listeners' leadership to another level by finding their balance between executive excellence and personal well-being through stories that inspire real change. I believe we don't have enough effective leaders in the world today, and if we can get leaders to step up and lead change, then they can inspire real change. Hey listeners, it's now time to adapt in our fast-moving world, and I want to welcome you to today's Ask Denis freestyle episode. Before we go any further, I just want to remind listeners that you're more than welcome to come and check out and join the Facebook group Leadership is Changing. Or if you're on LinkedIn, check out the page and come along and join that as well, which is Leadership is Changing in relation to both Facebook group and also the LinkedIn page. It's a wonderful community, and I pose questions there sometimes, and it's wonderful to see what people are saying, what they're sharing from their experiences and their thoughts in relation to leadership is changing. Hey, I also want to talk to you today about an offer, and the offer here is for you as a listener. If there is something that you want to work around your strategy, if you want to have a half an hour catch up with me to discuss your strategy about where you're going this year and what you might need to do and put in place, feel free to reach out to me and send me an email, dennis@leadingchangepartners.com, or send me a private message on social media. Alrighty, so the Ask Denis episode, it's a freestyle episode, and this is when I'm normally asked a question by our listeners, or where I share my thoughts, experiences, and insights from working with many leaders around the globe. And so welcome to today's session. Today I want to talk to you about why do people not understand the strategy? What I'm finding is that as I've gone around the different organizations over the years, and even still true today, when I go in there, people can't tell me the strategy of the organization. They have no idea. They look there with a blank face, and then they start to look around at each other and they start to try and make it up or try and recall it based on what has been shared with them in the past. So why don't they understand the strategy? Why don't they know what the strategy is? Why do they not get it? In fact, why do they not resonate with the strategy? Well, what is the strategy? This is the big question that's asked, and it's quite interesting to see what happens here. So the question here I've got is, well, how is it put together? Does the organization involve all employees, or is it just made at the top and then they say, here it is, and then no one else has got any buy into it or had any input into it at all? How is it communicated? That's quite interesting, because what I notice is that it's almost like it's pushed down people's throats. You'll get somebody up on stage and they'll do a big fanfare about it, and they'll do a large event, and then what they do is they stand on stage and they go, ta-da, here's our strategy of our organization. And you get all these blank faces looking up at them, blinking away, thinking, what? And then you might see that they'll have the music and they'll have the clapping, and everyone's clapping and everybody excited about it and that, on all that side of things. And then the organization may go, good luck, good to see you. See you in 12 months' time. Now go out and put the strategy in place. And people go, yep, cool, we're going to go and do that. And then they get back to the workplace and they go, huh? What does this mean for me? What am I doing? You see, most people think it's not for them. They think it's just a thing that senior leadership does, or the organization, or a board, or whatever is putting this strategy in place. But they actually think it's not anything to do with them. Now, if you're working with somebody who's an engineer, computer engineer, programmer, sitting at the desk, if they're coding all day, how does their job actually relate to the strategy of the organization? If you're in hospitality and you've got somebody serving customers and things like that, how are they, as a waiter, waitress, or somebody who's out there serving, how are their job relating to the organization? If you're a frontline leader and what you're doing on a daily basis, how's that related to the strategy of the organization? And what I notice is that a lot of companies will actually put it on an A4 or legal size piece of paper, or even an A3, so it's double that size of the A4 legal. And if they think it's really, really important, they may even laminate it. And then what they do is they put that whole poster, as they call it, up in the kitchen area. You'll know what I mean because you've seen it in the past. They'll put it up in the kitchen area where you go and make your tea and coffee, hoping that you might even just have a read of it as you're doing that going forward. Now, what actually happens here is that most people aren't reading it. They'll go, oh yeah, the strategy. Oh yeah, something in the kitchen area, I think. But they can't articulate it. They can't tell you what it is. Now, so the question here is, how do we make it relevant for people? Well, the biggest way that you can do it is, outside of actually just communicating it, is to actually use storytelling. I find that if you use storytelling to actually take people on the journey and make it relevant for them, then they'll actually get it. See, for a lot of us, when we're growing up, one of the best things that could happen for us was to have a story told to us. Even those who have got children today, what they like is that when they go to bedtime, they want to have a story shared with them. And we all remember those stories. The ones that we remember are the ones that we had an emotional attachment to it, and it made us feel great, bad, sad, whatever. That's how we actually have sort of an attachment with it. It's a bit like a movie that you went to. What's one of the favorite movies you've been to in the last 10 years? Now, why do you still remember that movie? It's more than likely because there was an emotional piece in it. There was something in it that hooked you, that got you. Well, this is what we need to do with the strategy side of things. How do we hook people into it? How do we get people to buy into it? How do we make it relevant for people? And there's a real art and skill in doing so. Because you see, if we can help the leaders, help them understand about the strategy and then how to actually make it relevant for people, that would be a key. That would be really, really important and also awesome to see. So I think, first of all, leaders need to understand the strategy themselves. There's no point in actually talking about it, no point in actually just reading some slides, some PowerPoint slides, because how do you know what that means? You have to understand it yourself, first of all. Communicate it well, but communicate it regularly with people because they're not going to get it within the first 5 seconds. You may need to say it a few times. Now, when you're with your team or with other employees, and there's times that they do certain things in their job and the way they do projects, or they're about to start a project, or they may be doing a piece of work, always help them understand what they are doing and how that relates back to the strategy. Because if you can do that on a regular basis, help them understand what they're doing on a daily basis and how that relates back to the strategy, then they're going to understand the bigger picture. They're going to understand what they do on a daily basis and how that relates to other areas within the organization and also to the bigger picture / strategy. So I always understand and always think that strategy is a beautiful thing that can be put into place, but how do we bring it to life? And so I always say, keep it simple. Try and do 3 points, 3 main areas if you can around the strategy. Make it 3 simple words, 3 to 5 at the most, right? But just keep it simple. Make it relevant. Always keep revisiting it, helping people understand. Use storytelling. Keep coming back and giving examples of how it's relating back to the strategy. And the third point that I would say here is by bringing it to life. You need to live it. You not just talk about it, but live it as well and bring it to life for you and for your team and your organization. Those leaders who are very good at storytelling and getting that strategy and putting it in place, but taking it and making it relevant, putting it in words that people will understand and actually will think, wow, now I get it. That's the kind of skill set that you need to have. And so, team, it's really important that we do this going forward. Too many times I've seen organizations that don't know where they're going, that just happen to be doing things, and a lot of it's by luck. If you've got a strategy and it's the right strategy, then bring it to life with people and help them through it. Team, my offer, if you want to spend some time with me to look at your strategy for you as an individual, for you as a leader, as an entrepreneur, for your business, for your team, whatever it is, I'm here offering a free 30-minute strategy session with me. I'm more than happy to do that with you. And feel free to reach out to me. Send me a message on an email, Denis@leadingchangepartners.com, or send me a private message on social media. More than happy to do it. You see, what we do on a daily basis around strategy is really important for us because it's part of the culture. If we can create a culture like that, then culture always eats strategy for lunch, right? That's the way it always is. But I always believe that the right culture will actually bring the strategy to life. And that's what we need to do. We need to couple those things together for sure. Hey, listeners, I want to say thanks for joining me on the show today. If you haven't already checked out the Facebook group, Leadership is Changing, go ahead and do that. And also check out the Leadership is Changing page on LinkedIn if you're on LinkedIn. So there's 2 different areas where you can go. Hey, listeners, what we as leaders know to be true is that change is constant. Change is incredibly scary, especially the unknown, the unfamiliar territory. It's time to adapt in our fast-moving world when leadership is changing. Look out for the episodes as they are being released. Download them, have a listen, put a review, a rating. Those reviews and ratings help us a lot, and we would really love to see them coming through. Feel free to send them or share them with your friends, your family, your network. Hey, if there's any feedback you'd like to give me on the show, please feel free to send me an email at Denis@leadingchangepartners.com. If there is a question you have for my guests that you would like me to ask them as I'm interviewing them, or if there's a question you would like to ask me on the Ask Denis Freestyle episode, send me an email, Denis@leadingchangepartners.com, or send me a private message on social media. Hey team, always a pleasure having you here with us on the show. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time, bye for now.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Leadership is Changing with your host, Denis Giannoutsas. Each week, we and our guests provide information and insights through exploring leading change, inspiring executives and leaders to adapt and lead a bigger game in a fast-moving world.